welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk to you a bit about how to create color palettes or choose the colors for your PCs. So I'm gonna start talking a little bit about color theory, but what I want to achieve with this video is actually help you guys choose your colors for your PCs without having to study a lot of heavy color theory. So I just wanted to introduce you to the color wheel. You probably already know about this, and you know that these are your primary colors that are red, yellow and blue. And in some other systems they also use the magenta, the yellow and the cyan. But it works anyway, doesn't really matter, they are very similar. So you know that the secondary colors are orange, purple and green. And these are the mix in equal parts of the primary colors, like green is the mix of blue and yellow in equal parts. The more yellow you add, the yellowish the green tone becomes, and the more blue you add, the bluish the green becomes. And the same with the rest of the colors. So what I want you to take into account is that these are tones, but to work with a color palette, we also have to take into account the brightness and darkness of the tones. And here I have a color wheel. It's not exactly the same, and I'm not gonna work with this color wheel because I don't really like how it's placed. But what I wanted to show with this is that if you grab any color from here, from the outer part, which is the actual color wheel, you'll see that there's a lighter and a darker tone of that same tone. So there's a darker and a lighter tone you can grab from that. So keep this in mind when choosing color palettes, because I'm gonna show you a few techniques you can use to choose them. So one is choose colors that are one in front of the other in the color wheel. And this might be difficult because sometimes you see these color wheels that aren't exactly the same and you might get confused, but you know, they're mostly the same, they just have like different things going on. But just choose a basic color wheel like this one, and if you see colors that are in front one of the other, like red and green, they are complementary colors, which means that they work very well together. So you can always, if you grab any tone of red, you grab this color and you add any variation on the, like it's the same color but you make it darker or you make it lighter, any of this tone, so let's grab that, will work well in a piece with any of these tones. Let's grab a darker one for this, because they're complementary. So I'm telling you this so you don't see only this chance, because some people do that in the beginning. Alright, so if these are complementary colors, I should use this red and this green, and no other will work together well. But it's not like that, and you can choose any combination you want. You can use, for example, this kind of cyan and this kind of orangey red. I don't know how to call it, it's a dark orange, I guess. And the same happens with this, you just have to work, you know, if you add some white to it, still the same color. And if you add some white to this one, it actually works very well, for example, if you put them both to the lighter side. So you create a pastel color palette. And if you put them both in the darker side, you create a darker color palette. And if you just grab this brightness of the color, which is like the most pure tone you can get, this will give a lot of saturation to your piece. It just will make it very, very saturated, and it will call your attention. So you can play with this, you can play both with picking your colors and then make them both lighter, make them both darker, play around with a very saturated tone and a very desaturated tone, and things like that. Just for example, in digital, it's very fun to play like this with colors because you just pick a color and you have so many options to choose from. It's just amazing. So then another technique will be to choose 3 complementaries. They are like the same we did before, but instead of picking the ones that are in front of them, you're gonna pick the ones that are equal separated of them, like this, in a triangle shape. Or it could be like this. Or maybe you want to pick them like this. So they have an equal distance from one to the other. These ones are like secondary complementaries, something like that. So if you pick these 3 colors as a base for your color palette, for example, let's change them a bit. They will work well together, like promised. They will always create a good color palette. They will work well together because that's what color theory says. So you can play with this, obviously, and again play with the brightness and the darkness of the tones, and it always helps. And then another thing you can do is pick 2 or 3 colors, that depends on you, or even 4 colors, and use them all together. Like 4 colors in the same range. They don't even have to be like all orangey yellows. For example, you can pick, I don't know, let's grab from the blue to the red. And you know, these colors are gonna work well together because they are next to each other in the color wheel, which means they're kind of similar. So, for example, let's try to create a color palette like this. So what I said was pick this blue, and I'm gonna desaturate it a bit. So I'm gonna add more black to it. Good. I want a nice dark blue. And now I want kind of a bright purple. So I'm gonna add some white to it. Nice. And now I'm gonna grab this kind of magenta color and I'm gonna make it kind of not very dark, not very light, more to the dark side actually. And then with the red, I'm gonna go kind of bright to make a color pop. And I don't know if you can see it, but I do see that this color palette seems to work well together. I think if I use this in a piece, they will work perfectly together. They will be fine. So you can play with these 3 different techniques and just let it loose. I don't know, I think if you try any of these combinations, like for example, try complementary colors and then try the triangle thingy. And there's there's like the T shape, which is like this. So you pick 2 complementaries and then 1 in the middle, which can work like this too. 2 complementaries and this in the middle. You know, it works both ways. So if you pick this, it's kind of like the triangle, but you're limiting your color palette from a side, like just one side of it. So any of these ones will work well because you already know that complementary colors work well, and this one breaks a little bit the contrast between them. So probably this one will be the one that will contrast more with the other ones, but they will all work together perfectly fine. So I want you to keep in mind, and what most people don't keep in mind, is that when you work with color, with the color wheel, you don't have to pick this tone. This actual tone has darker and lighter values. So this tone is still the same. Like, it's still the same tone, it just has more brightness to it. And this tone is still the same, but it has less brightness to it. So this actually still works with any color theory you might, with any complementary thing you might think. So I think if you keep that in mind, you will be able to make very cool color palettes. Honestly, you could, because you can get a very nice brown from here and a very nice lighter green, and they will work together because they're complementary. You can keep looking, there's more techniques than this one. For example, I think you can pick like, jump one and pick 3 colors. But that's actually kind of the T thing. Or playing with the color wheel is very fun. And it actually helps a lot to understand a bit more of color theory. But if you don't think you're ready for this, maybe you can try to make your own color palettes and then compare them with color palettes you might find on Pinterest. For example, I do have a board on color palettes on Pinterest, and most of the times I don't use them, but sometimes I want to use them and then I end up switching them a bit because I know a bit about color theory and I know what I'm doing if I switch them. So if you find yourself switching color palettes and thinking about them, you probably know a bit more than what you're letting on. So try to play with the color wheel and let's see what you can make. I would love to know what you think about these techniques. I hope this was easy for you to understand. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this, I post a video every single Friday. So just hit the subscribe button and you'll see me next Friday. Bye!